If Jermall Charlo wants to fight Tim Tszyu upon his return to 154 pounds, he'll have to shed a belt to do so, as Dan Rafael reports that the IBF has ordered Charlo to face longtime mandatory challenger Bakole Murtazaliev. The two have until November 9th to avoid a purse bid. Murtazaliev, 21-0, 15 KO, has been in line for a title shot since Julian Williams held the belt, having beaten Jorge Forti in a November 2019 Final Eliminator. He then stepped aside 3 times to clear the way for Charlo's February 1st, 35, 19 KO fights with Jason Rosario and Brian Castano, and though Charlo signed a contract to face Murtazaliev immediately afterwards, Murtazaliev again stepped aside to allow the Tszyu fight with the expectation that he faced the winner. We all know how that turned out. Murtazaliev could hypothetically step aside a 5th time, as Charlo vs Tszyu is now a unification fight instead of an undisputed title defense, but his comments suggest that he's done feasting on the likes of Roberto Valenzuela Jr. As I've said before, he's not a particularly compelling challenger. Having multiple belts means taking on additional responsibilities, though, and it would be nice to see Charlo forced to honor them. His team scheduling the Tszyu fight so long after Castano too is what set this whole train wreck into motion, after all. Oscar de la Hoya tells ESPN that, as a number of outlets reported over the last few weeks, Ryan Garcia will return to action on December 2nd at the Alamo Dome against Oscar Duarte. No PPV for this one, just standard issue to zone. Garcia, 23-1, 19 KO, hasn't seen action since suffering a body-shot knockout to Gervonta Davis in April. In the ring, at least, Golden Boy filed suit against him in June for alleged breach of contract, but De La Hoya claims it's business as usual as they angled for a mega fight around Super Bowl weekend. Duarte, 26-1-1, 21 KO, has knocked out 11 straight since dropping a split decision to Adrian Estrella in 2019. He's no stranger to DAZN, having picked up wins on the undercards of Munguia Kelly, Diaz Gesta, and most recently Rocha vs Young. His competition has been questionable and he's a career lightweight, but he's decent as far as comeback opponents go, especially with all the trainer/lawsuit/painful reminder of his own mortality via liver shot baggage Garcia's dealing with. It would be nice to see Garcia actually fight a super lightweight, though. This makes 3 non-tank opponents that he's dragged up from 135 since moving up in weight. Maybe next time.
Mike Coppinger reports that, as is standard for super fights in this day and age, Tyson Fury vs Alexander Usyk features a 2-way rematch clause. You'll recall that said rematch clause sank Fury Usyk the first time around, as the two sides butted heads over who would be the financial A side. Coppinger's article doesn't go into details of how they hashed that out, though it does name December 23rd as a target date. The interesting tidbit comes later. The IBF sent a letter to involved parties last week that stipulated the winner of Fury Usyk must make a mandatory defense with no intervening bouts, and that the organization will not grant exceptions. That means if an immediate rematch takes place, the IBF title won't be on the line. In that instance, Croatia's Filip Hrgovic will fight the next available contender for the vacant IBF title. Like the WBO electing to strip Jermall Charlo after the opening bell of last Saturday's loss to Canelo Alvarez, this is the correct decision. Whether or not you agree with the decision in Hrgovic's eliminator against Zhilei Zhang, he's been the mandatory for almost 14 months. We've already seen the heavyweight division ground to a halt by endless rematches recently and, much like many have said rematches, we don't need to see it again.
Emmanuel Navarrete will defend his WBO junior lightweight title on November 16th against Robson Conceição. The fight will be on the undercard of Shakur Stevenson's bout with Edwin de Los Santos for the vacant WBC lightweight title at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Navarrete, 38-1, 31 KO, beat Liam Wilson to win the WBO 130 pounds belt in February, the third weight class where the 28-year-old Mexican star has won a world title. El Vaquero made a successful defense against former two-division titleist Oscar Valdez on August 12. Conceição, 17-2, 8 KO, will be getting his third chance to win this belt, previously dropping decisions to the aforementioned Valdez and the also aforementioned Stevenson. His last 4 fights have been the loss to Valdez, which came with some controversy, then a win over Xavier Martinez, the loss to Stevenson, and a 2-round no contest on June 10 against Nicolas Polanco. If you are wondering what he has done to merit another title shot, you have to remember that boxing title shots don't really come from merit. Conceição, 34, is with Top Rank and is ranked by the WBO. Well, actually, at the moment, he isn't ranked by the WBO, but that can change very easily, and will. So there is your answer. That is how it works. Former unified super bantamweight champion Murtazaliev Makhmudov could be back in title contention by the end of the year, as Matchroom Boxing won today's purse bid for his WBA Final Eliminator against Kevin Gonzalez with a $120,000 offer to be split 50-50ths. Per Matchroom, the fight could join Regis Prograis vs Devin Haney on December 9th, Sonny Edwards vs Bam Rodriguez on December 16th, or an unannounced December 23rd show in Abu Dhabi. That's assuming it happens at all. Of course, Gonzalez, 26-0-1, 13 KO, can still withdraw if he decides $60,000 isn't enough to fight someone who was until recently on the fringes of pound-for-pound status. He got this opportunity when top-ranked Tomoki Kameda elected to move up to 126, and if he does bow out, Ukraine's Ola Dovhun is next in line. Dovhun is BoxRec's number 132 at super bantamweight and went to a split decision with the now 9-5 Jeremy Loyan 2 fights back, just in case you're curious as to how well thought out the WBA rankings are. If it does go through, the winner would be in line to challenge the Naoya Inoue vs Marlon Tapales winner for undisputed status. I believe they'd be next, in fact, but don't quote me on that. Tapales was the IBF mandatory against Makhmudov, 11-1, 7 KO, which cleared that obligation, while Sam Goodman sits atop the WBO rankings and either Luis Neri or Alan Picasso is next up for the WBC.